how do you see this race? If you changed your mind, I guess, concerning TCU, we've all changed our minds. I don't know that anyone thought TCU was going to be any good. And I caught they had a great game against Oklahoma State and were losing by 17 points in the second quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And, as that drama continued to build, I was focused on other games, but I locked in on the fourth quarter and overtime, and it was a tremendous game. And so we've got TCU and Kansas State at the top of the board. Who have you been impressed with, and how do you see this thing shaking out at this point?
Yeah, Mark. I mean, I think TCU is the certainly the big surprise in the league. I think most of us, including myself, I can't remember exactly where I had them, but it was in the bottom half of the league this year, and they're all the way up to number 8 overall in the country. I don't know that I don't know that they're the 8th best team in the country right now, but that's where they, from an AP perspective, that's where they deserve to be. I think based on their based on their win-loss record and based on who they beat thus far. I went into this past weekend, Mark, thinking that I felt that Oklahoma State was the best team in the league, not by a large margin, but by a fair margin. Now I think it's a little bit of more even, right? I mean, I think my concern, along with yours, has always been with Oklahoma State. How much do you trust Spencer Sanders outside of that? And I know he was a little bit injured, playing injured on Saturday, but 16 of 36, he did have an interception. And your point that he was Oklahoma State was up by 17 points in the first half, and then 16 points in the second half on a couple of different occasions, and just did not finish the game well at all. So, I mean, you have to have, I think Kansas State is the team that I think a lot of us thought that had the opportunity to be here, right? I mean, I think, they were very much the trendy pick for teams. I mean, in terms of the conference to get back in the top half of the conference. So, which I think the thing that's very, very interesting with Kansas State, I didn't realize this, but I saw this stat yesterday, which was shocking in a way, that given what Adrian Martinez's track record was at Nebraska, Kansas State's the only team in the Big 12 that has not thrown an interception this year thus far. And knowing how Adrian Martinez was giving up the ball in a lot of just bad situations at Nebraska. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's right now it seems to be a 3-horse race between Oklahoma State, TCU, and Kansas State, but Texas is there. So a couple of really good matchups this weekend, Mark, that I think will very much solidify what that pecking order looks like with Oklahoma State and Texas, and TCU and Kansas State. And I know me and you, among others, obviously, but I know me and you take special consideration to the betting lines, right? When we look at these games and stuff that we do over on Patreon. But I had to look at this again, like this year more than any. There's been lines that I've just looked at and I've just kind of scratched my head a little bit. I think I don't know what, I think it's 4.5 now, or maybe it's 6.5, but either way. But Texas came into this game as a 6.5 point favorite over Oklahoma State. And that was, I mean, a little surprising given the fact that the game's in Stillwater, given the fact that Oklahoma State is the higher ranked team. So maybe there's a lot of consideration to Spencer Sanders not being 100%, or maybe potentially won't be in a position to play. But I think those two games are very intriguing for me, and and I think that obviously the two teams that are I think surprisingly disappointing in where they're at is certainly Oklahoma and Baylor, when a lot of people thought that those were the two teams that would end up making it back to Dallas for the Big 12 championship game.
Adrian Martinez and Kansas State are, in fact, the only team in the country that has not thrown an interception. As I look at the stats right here, Tennessee, Georgia, TCU, USC, San Jose State, Arkansas State. There's quite a few. Vandy and Air Force have only thrown one. But Adrian Martinez, 143 passing attempts out of Kansas State. He's got to have almost all of those. No interceptions, albeit he's thrown 4 touchdown passes. But he's run for a heck of a lot of yardage.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, Kansas State is winning the way Kansas State wins. You know, they typically don't beat themselves. They're not going to be flashy on the offensive side of the ball. They're going to play good fundamental defense and force the other team to make mistakes. And so, that'll be that'll be, even though Oklahoma's not playing this week, those will be 2 good games that I'll be sure to be keeping my eye on both sides. I was surprised that it looked like Texas maybe had a little bit of an OU hangover on Saturday. I thought that they would, I should have thought differently given the fact that over Matt Campbell's career, he doesn't get blown out. But I thought that they would win a little bit more convincingly than they did by other than just escaping. So, but I think they have the offensively. I think they have. Even as good as TCU is on the offense side of the ball, I think Texas is more balanced and probably has the biggest trajectory offensively. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Defensively, Kansas State is very, very fundamentally sound as always.